place tomorrow. Okay, sorry for that break in transmission. So the webinar series aims to increase the knowledge and understanding of Nigerians about the SDGs and their importance. So in essence, it is organized to provide an opportunity for participants to learn more about the SDGs, their importance, and the role of young people in achieving them. All right. So who are the organizers of this program? So I just like to recognize the presence of our sponsors. I don't know, Miss Esther, are they here? Are they here?
Yes, we have someone from the organizing team here. We have one of the members.
Okay, all right. So this SDGs Advocate Program is sponsored by the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, whose headquarters is in University of Ibadan, so Oyo State to be precise. So the network focuses on harnessing the potentials of youth to achieve the SDGs by the year 2030. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of all representatives from the I beg your pardon, from Abia State, all representatives from Abia State. I'd like to recognize your presence. Ms. Esther is in the house. We have Mr. Philemon and my humble self, Stephen Adeyemi. I can see Annie and Gift. Okay, Chuku. So you are highly welcome, and every other person that is yet to be here, their presence is acknowledged in advance. All right, so please, I would just like us to do something quickly in case you have not shared this link. So please go to WhatsApp, go to LinkedIn, go to Instagram, go to Facebook, and please endeavor to share with your friends, inviting them to come join in what I would tag a meeting like never before. All right, so I just like to do a quick introduction shortly, and I'll be sharing my slide. I'll be sharing my screen shortly. I hope I've been enabled to do that. All right, so please permit me to share my screen before I welcome the guest speaker for today. All right, okay. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Okay.
Not
can
yet.
we see my screen? Can we see now?
No, I can't see.
Okay, just a few minutes, please.
Please, I hope you're looking at the time as well.
Yes, yes. Okay. Can we see my screen now?
No.
Okay, I'll just go ahead to say a few things. All I want to say is I want to just say a few things about SDGs and how it concerns us. So please just bear with me. I'm having some technical issues. All right. So I know that a couple of persons might be wondering, I personally, as a person, before I got into this SDG of a thing now, I've been hearing about SDG here and there, and I've been asking, what is SDG all about? So it's possible that we have somebody on this call, maybe somebody who would still join, who would also be in the same shoes asking such kind of question, that what is SDGs all about? So I just like to say that it's actually SDG is actually from the word sustainable development, and the idea of sustainable development came as a response to the exponential economic growth that has been ongoing since the Industrial Revolution, and the growth has actually been prioritized over the environment during this period, and it has led to so many consequences, which is displacing local communities, deforesting land for urbanization, and inefficient resource use are all common practices. So as a result, the world now faces issues with no immediate solution. And some of the issues that the world has been facing is poor air quality. Most of us that live in the city, we can actually witness to this. We also have degraded lands and also climate change. So according to the United Nations, sustainable development is defined as a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So I can as well say that to some extent, this generation has been able to meet their needs. So now, if this generation has been able to meet their needs, what happens to the future generation yet unborn? How will they be able to meet their needs? So that is what sustainable development is actually all about. So it's a kind of development that meets the needs of the present without also compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So simply put, it balances economic growth with the associated social and environmental impacts. So, and from there, I'll quickly move on to sustainable development goals. So the sustainable development goals is also known as the global goals, and they were adopted by the United Nations in 2015 as a universal call to actions to end poverty, to protect the planet, and to ensure that by 2030, all people enjoy peace and prosperity. So that's all about sustainable development goals. So the goals are actually 17 in number, and I would just quickly like to run through them. Number one is no poverty, and the main essence of this goal is to end poverty in all its form everywhere. Number two is zero hunger, to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. So that's the second goal, which is zero hunger. The third one is good health and well-being. And the main aim of this is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Number four is quality education, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Number five is gender equality, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. Six is clean water and sanitation, ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Seven is affordable and clean energy, is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and clean energy for all. Eight is decent work and economic growth. It's to promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. Nine is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. 10 is reduced inequalities. Reduce inequalities within and among countries. 11 is sustainable cities and communities. Make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. 12 is responsible consumption and production. Ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. 13 is climate action. Is to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. 14 is life below water. Conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. 15, live on land. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems, sustainable managed forests, combat desertification, and halt and reserve land degradation, and halt biodiversity losses. 16 is peace, justice, and strong institutions. I beg your pardon. Promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. The last but not the least, which is the 17th goal, is partnership for the goals. Strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. So somebody might want to ask that, how do these SDGs concern everyone? It concerns everyone because they are a call to action to end poverty and inequality, to protect the planet and ensure that all people enjoy health, justice, and prosperity. So that's actually all from my hand as regards the introduction aspect. So without further ado, I would just quickly like to move to the next segment of the webinar, which is to have the keynote speaker of the day to take over. Our topic for the day, we just like we put up in the design, the flyer that went out, that our spotlight will be on 2 goals. So for day 1, we're going to be talking about goal 13, which is climate action. So and our topic for the day is climate change, related hazards, and unequal social and economic impact on households, communities, and countries. Can we hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Yes, we can. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. So in our midst this evening, we have a keynote speaker, and it's the person of Mr. Samuel Okorie. And I just like to read his profile. Mr. Sam Okorie is a climate and environment specialist. Is a climate and environment specialist and the founder and pioneer of the POP Nigeria initiative, that is part of the EWA, United Nations Education Emergency Fund. He is the communications and policy advisor for GLOBE, the official parliamentary focal point for the UNFCCC Nigeria chapter. He is a climate reality leader and one of Global Landscape Forum and fellow of Cambridge Existential Risk. He was an European Climate Pact ambassador for the EU, investigative journalist for Young British Climate Connect, British Council, and the lead field researcher for the UNICEF Nigeria Urban Slum Research. He is currently the research working group coordinator for the Loss and Damage Youth Coalition, LDYC, and LDYC L&D research consultant with the International Institute for Environment and Development, IIED, and the contact point for loss and damage, that is Yongo UNFCCC, that is the official youth constituency of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. You can see that the keynote speaker for the day has a very, very big profile. So he's not a novice in his campaign or his advocacy for climate change. So let's make welcome Mr. Samuel Okorie. Thank you so much, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Stephen. Look at how I'm looking at you, like. So, hope you can all hear me. Please, Mr. Stephen, can you give me access to share my screen? Can you stop sharing so I can share my screen, if you don't mind? Okay, good. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Samuel C. Okorie, and nice being here today with all of you. It is a pleasure. And the Youth Initiative Program Uganda, thanks for coming. Thanks everyone as well for coming. We know we expect more people. And I'm also known as Climate Crusader. So for some of you that may have heard of Climate Crusader, so this is me physically or visually talking to you. Okay, so we will start right now. I will share my screen. this will be a fast ride, but why it's going to be a fast ride, I will just like to say, please and please, if you can run with me, I don't mind. If you can't, then, we just have to run along and see how everything goes. But please just be with me. If you don't understand anything, if there's something you are missing out, if there's something that is not clear to you, you can always, let me bring my attention to it. I don't mind, throwing more emphasis and also seeing how we can be able to work together on this. I'm trying to navigate some things here, but it's proving difficult. Okay, so you can see my screen, right? If you can't see my screen, let me know.
I can see your screen.
I can see it.
Okay, good. So our topic, like Mr. Stephen has said, I just have to abbreviate it to climate change, related and unequal socio-economic impact. So when you look at climate change, you talk about the related and unequal socio-economic impact. You may want to ask, so what does that mean? I don't know, but before I go on, I would like to say, do anybody have some perspective to share, like to say, okay, this is what I understood, this is what I think, or this is not what I think? Anybody? You can just unmute yourself, or you can use the chat box. Anybody?
Good evening,
Anybody
sir.
says? Yeah, go on.
Well, previously, I've not been paying attention to climate change and the trends, but recently I started doing that also thanks to the current program. So from what I've learned so far, climate change, it refers to the abnormal rapid change we have in our climate.
Just tell me what you understand by climate change impact, like not go into definition, like just your own basic knowledge about climate change impact.
Okay, my own basic knowledge is that our climate as a planet is changing rapidly outside the way it should, and it's causing some effects that affect our environment and the way we live and also our health. Yes.
Oh, that is fair enough, and I will give it to you. It's causing a lot of impact. It's causing a lot of changes, not just to man, not just to the environment, but even to our biodiversity. And I know some of us may have heard of the term biodiversity. Some of us may have heard of the term ecosystem. You may have heard of these terms. So all these things are impacted by climate change. And then that is, we just treat on this topic, and I believe it will help give you some basic knowledge about climate change and also the things to look out for. Because for me, I believe climate change impacts people or affects people. Now we look at affects, we look at affect, we look at specific group of people, specific region, but we are looking at the impact to look at the generalized overview of what it is, that is globally. So we look at we say climate change, what has been the impact or what has been the result. So we know that it has left millions of people, in life-threatening situations, causing havoc due to rise in temperature, sea rising, fierce storms, unpredictable rainfall, drought, desertification, all these things are part of the physical representative or the physical exposure of climate change in our society today. And this impact is not far-fetched because I believe most of this impact has been predicted, which we can look at to refer to them as what we call existential risk or existential threats, which is now haunting us today. And we also have more potential effect of climate change that is about to happen. So at times I look at climate change, especially in climate vulnerable communities like Nigeria. Let me don't use Nigeria alone, but sub-Saharan region of Africa as a region that is more like a region that is waiting for disaster to happen, because our transportation measures are weak and a lot of things is not going right. So there has been some global call to rapidly reduce emissions. One of the driving forces of climate change is CO2 emission, that is carbon emission. And where does this come from? We have two major aspects where carbon emission comes from energy and from transportation. So these are the two major driving or two major causative factors that you need to consider when you're looking at emission. And by transportation, we all know the use of transportation. And by energy, we look at energy consumed by companies, businesses, and industries. However, the effect to curb greenhouse gas and strengthen adaptation and resilience measures are not sufficient to address the rampant spread of climate impact, thereby making climate change-induced loss and damage inevitable. So there's what we call climate change loss and damage, which we may not know or we may know. And when we talk about loss and damage, it talks about those impacts that cannot be reversed, just like the death of someone. You know, on rare occasions, it can be reversed, okay? Especially when the person is gone and is buried. So you even going to the grave to dig the person out could be like foolishness. Like, are you okay? Like, you know, so that is when you're looking at loss and damage, it means those climate change induced disasters that cannot be reversed, and that is also beyond people to adapt to, is beyond your coping approach. You know, when you are in the flooded area, there are levels of the flood, or there are levels at which the flood will get to, you can be able to cope. But there are levels at which it will be beyond you. So you may just have to leave your home, leave every of your property, you know, and just find a place to rest for at that moment until you get safety. So we look at climate change impacts and also loss and damage associated with the impacts of climate change. Now, when we look at what is causing climate change, we look at in this image, okay, there is low onset events and there are extreme events. Now, low onset events are those events that have rapid or slow environmental effects on our environment as a result of climate change. Okay, you look at desertification as a result of sun. Okay, you look at increasing temperatures as a result of the climate, which is also sun. You look at land and forest degradation. These are is not something that can just happen a day. You know, it takes a gradual process, and before you know, everything is gone. You look at sea level rise. We know that sea level rise doesn't just start a day. It takes a gradual, that's called low onset events. It takes a gradual process, and once it gets high, it becomes extreme event. It becomes something that an individual can cope, but requires more of advanced knowledge to, you know, reduce. You look at loss of biodiversity. Loss of biodiversity, I think we all are cause of this. Like, we are contributing to loss of biodiversity because we cut trees, we chase bushmeat, some of us. If we don't chase, we eat bushmeat, okay? And we don't keep our environment clean, some. We don't do sanitation. When you drink water, you just throw it anyhow. And at the end of the day, those plastics that you threw on the street, once it rains, it will be carried by water bodies straight down to the river bodies, from river bodies to the lakes, from there to the oceans. And why this process of transportation or water cycling transportation is going on, species, aquatic species are being trapped in these plastic containers or plastic bottles, you know, and it leads to death and possible extinction of those endangered species. Yes, especially if those species are endangered, like they will soon go into extinction. So imagine if we only have those species, 2 of those species left globally, and because of the plastic pollution, one is dead, you know, that means it's the only one that is left in the world. So imagine if that one should get trapped into the plastic you used. That means you just gave rise to, or you just supported the extinction of a particular species, which is very, very bad. And we look at extreme events, we look at droughts, okay? And we can find drought in a lot of places, especially in the northern region of Nigeria. And I think it's also beginning to happen in some western region of Nigeria. When you look at the western region of Nigeria, you look at the far west, like Osun, Ondo, you know, apart from the drought, you also look at landslides in these regions as well. So you also look at heat wave. This heat wave happens a lot in sub-Saharan region where at times you may feel like sleeping naked every day in your room. You can have heat radiations where you get to see red blisters or red burns, or just burns all over your body because of heat and all. And then we have tropical cyclone. Nigeria has not experienced adverse or disastrous cyclone, but regions like Mozambique, Sudan, Zimbabwe, these regions have experienced a lot of cyclones that have cleared thousands of lives. And I hope that won't come to Nigeria, never. And I know it won't, like, I also pray it doesn't, come up again, like there is no upsurge of such again. I'll have storm surge. There are storms that are happening these days in Lagos that at times it gets me scared. Like in my room right now, the one that happened yesterday, I was thinking that it's going to fall my room, like, because my room is at the topmost. So I was just hearing the sound of this wind. My windows were shaking, like my heart was just on my hand. I was like, God, please, this, if this thing should fall now, what is my end? So it can be really, 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 scary. And this storm surge has destroyed a lot of properties. If you look at the Turkey that happened, storm surge, even in Pakistan, even in Philippines, there's a lot of storm surge has cleared a lot of things. I know Philippines has experienced a cyclone, Pakistan storm surge and flood, so, and that's why we also have flood here, which is also something we have been impacted with mostly. So I think Nigeria is the country that have experienced the worst adverse effect of flood globally. And I think everybody may or must have a taste of flooding issues, directly or indirectly. By indirectly, probably people you know, and by directly, probably you yourself or maybe your environment. So the socio-economic impact of climate change. So the impact of climate change does not happen in isolation. So it doesn't just happen, like I said, when we are looking at impact, you're looking at how these things doesn't just affect individuals, doesn't just affect a particular place, but we are looking at the regional impact of this particular scenario. So you wouldn't say, well, Nami suffer pass, or Nami this thing affect pass, So you won't have that mentality in your head to say climate change is a village thing. They sent it from the village. Because I know you can easily, come up with some mind-blowing perspective about what we feel resulted to what we are suffering. Like, for instance, maybe somebody died in the family because of flood. Be like, they sent it from the home. So we know our enemies are at work, but these are some of the disastrous, impact of climate change that we just have to face as a reality. And then, like I said, they don't happen in isolation. They interact with local vulnerabilities such as poverty, exclusion, inadequate infrastructure, war, etc., that often amplify or compound the effect of climate, or vice versa. So they don't happen in isolation. Like in an urban slum area, we can already see the projection on the vulnerability of these communities. In a community where they don't even have any drainage, water channel, any gutter, and all, we already seen the vulnerability. Countries faced with poverty, we already seen the vulnerability. Someone said something so striking that I was really, really interested about. And she said that climate change is synonymous with corruption. So the more corrupt a country is, the more vulnerable that country is. Why? Because if that country is corrupt, they won't see the need to invest in climate technologies or develop their adaptation systems, but instead they will always try to amass wealth and neglect the important issues. And that is what we are seeing in Nigeria. You can imagine the flood that happened, and people are saying Cameroon, they opened their dam and the rest. And I keep asking, if, let's say for instance, it's not climate change, but what made Cameroon, what made the dam to get filled up? That is sea level rise. That is sea level rise. And what is the cause of sea level rise? That is climate change. And why would they open their dam if it is not filled up? And Nigeria is not prepared to tackle that. That was why we saw how vulnerable Nigeria is in that area. And it shows how weak our adaptation structures are in adapting to climate change issues like flood. And then some of the impact of climate change, like climate change has impoverished millions of people, confronting escalating risks connected to migration, forced relocation, extreme weather events, health repercussions, and food and water, livelihood security. You won't argue, or we won't say that this is not true, because we already know that when climate change happens in communities, people migrate. It impoverishes people. It leads to unemployment. Let's say, for instance, you are living in a climate vulnerable community and something happened, like it got flooded and your house got flooded for months, and you don't have any other option but just to relocate. And let's just say that your organization doesn't have a platform where you can work remotely, like where you can work online to attend to your tasks. So you've lost your job. And for instance, if that is the only place where your organization exists, so you see how it gives rise to unemployment, and from unemployment, it also leads to insecurity issues. Because when someone is not employed, they look for other means, to get money, to make ends meet. And apart from that as well, it gives rise to war. It gives rise to conflict. We saw situations between farmers and herders clash, where farmers needed to move their cattle and all from one location to the other just for them to see a land to graze, And why are they migrating? Because there is no other land for them to graze in the northern region of Nigeria. The northern region of Nigeria right now is facing serious droughts and land desertification. And in the northern region of Nigeria, I can say this region this in the northern region of Nigeria is arid and semi-arid landscapes. In other words, the lands are dried up. The lands are dried up. And that is why you are seeing the price of food commodity going up. For instance, if you go to market, you know the price of tomatoes right now is the new gold or the new oil, So a lot of people don't cook with fresh tomatoes anymore. So you see, so those things also impact on food systems as well. Like if you look at how the interconnectedness of climate change, you also look at how it gives rise to gender-based violence. Because when people migrate, especially for the female folks, they become vulnerable. They can easily be raped and abused. The male can adapt, but the females, how vulnerable they are, they can also be exposed to infectious disease outbreak, especially during their menstrual cycles, which they cannot be able to adapt to. So when you look at a lot of indices connected to climate change and how it is interconnected with every sector of the society, you know that climate change is not just a one-phase stuff, but in as much as it's a systemic problem, it is also a pandemic like COVID-19 that everybody needs to pay a serious attention to. However, serious attention needs more to be paid to vulnerable communities, especially the sub-Saharan region of Nigeria, which is recognized as the most vulnerable region in the world. And some of the impacts of climate change, I'll just brush on this, like cultural heritage. This is climate change. People tend to lose their cultural heritage because they are looking for how to adapt. So they tend to migrate. As a result of that, their languages becomes an issue. For instance, right now there are some Yorubas that can't even speak the real Yoruba. There are some Igbos that can't speak the real Igbo. There are some Hausas that can't speak the real Hausas. And if you ask them part of what has happened, they will also tell you about climate change. And I can also tell you about my personality, which was flooding that made us to migrate from where we were to another place because of flooding. And this can also be the case for a lot of people, where you see people in IDP camps, and in IDP camps, you need at least English to communicate effectively. By so doing, their cultures, their heritage, a lot of things disappears. They don't observe their traditions anymore. Their mode of life changes, They just try to infiltrate themselves or just try to adapt themselves or immerse themselves into the already existing formula that has been made available for them because of climate change. So in other words, they try to develop the adaptation capacities against climate change impact. We also have quality of life like shelter, food, health. When flood happens, people don't go to school. That's the truth. If you stay in Bayelsa, when flood happens, you know that people can't go to school because schools will be closed. They can tell you we are declaring public holiday for 3 weeks until the water dries up. And it also have health risk like mosquito. When it happens, the water can be there and turns to stink. What do they call this water right now? Can someone help me? Well, it turns to swamp, yeah, and from swamp breeds mosquitoes, and from mosquitoes, we all know that mosquito is a communicable disease, so it keeps transferring. We also have a waterborne disease like diarrhea that can easily be transmitted as a result of water pollution and all that. We also have shelter, like it impacts shelter. I've also talked about the food issues and all, and so I've talked about migration. I've talked about displacement, where you move from one place to the other. Conflict with local population can also rise as a result of migration to new locations, which I've said, like desert encroachment. For instance, there are some communities right now that can't even accept Northerners. It's not because they don't like Northerners, but because they didn't actually plan to get these people into their territory. And why are Northerners actually migrating? Their environment, the heat there is so much that they can't even survive, not more to even feed themselves. So in North, they are facing a lot of crises, including food security, including shelter, including health. So the migration is rapid, And you look at issues of ecosystem and biodiversity degradation, which also has to do with the abundance of other species, as well as extinction of some species, which I've mentioned. And then the ecosystem, we have what we call ecosystem services. Ecosystem services are those services provided by nature to sustain the planet and man. So some ecosystem services we can see are, trees, landscapes, tropical rainforests. These are ecosystem services that helps to preserve biodiversity. And how it benefits man, apart from providing food and fruit for man, we have people go for fishing, hunting, at least based on precautions and regulations and all. And these services provide people with money, so it's a vice versa kind of thing. It's more like a mutual contract and exchange between man and nature. But the intense engagement in this activity leads to degradation of this ecosystem. And once climate change impacts on the environment or climate, as on the environment and the planet, whichever I want to use, I'm just using these terms relatively, you will always see the impact because it will affect pest management and pollination, it will affect crop yield, and also it may lead to indigenous society threats, leading to illness and hindrance to access herbal herbs, just like the indigenous people. You can't go to an indigenous community and start giving them what do they call it? You start giving them the orthodox medicine. Most of them prefer the herbs. I have been to indigenous communities outside the country, and in fact, even their drink tastes very, very different. Like, tastes very, very different, I'm telling you. So it's not something that you will just take and feel same way. No, you have to feel somehow different. That is how it is. And mental and physical health. So this aspect is very, very important, especially for us right now, because climate change has led to a lot of things that we may not even be aware of, including impacting our mental and physical health, causing mental breakdown and all. So, like for instance, the heat wave, when it happens, it distorts our mood of reasoning. It makes us, be mentally unstable. And we can also see the physical reaction of those things on our body, which can even lead to us being hospitalized and others. And apart from that as well, carbon emission, also exacerbates some health disorder. Like, for instance, we have climate change have increased cases of heat-related disorders, which I've said, respiratory issues, which I've also mentioned. And apart from that, it has increased anxiety. That's also called equal anxiety. It has increased sadness, and it has increased post-traumatic stress disorder. Let's say, for instance, someone's business or house or home got flooded, and a day before that flood, the person just bought goods of $1 million and stocked it in that place, and it got flooded the next day. What do you think will happen to that person? It will lead to a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of sadness. It can even lead to suicide. Yeah. So we are wrapping up soon. And then what are these like part of the impact of loss and damage? We also look at the forms of climate-related issues, which we can liken to two major issues when we are talking about climate change impact and disasters. We have economic losses and non-economic losses. When you look at the economic losses, these are losses that money can be able to, to be exchanged for, even though they are not reversible, they cannot be replaced the way it was, but at least you can be able to measure it or give it a quantitative value based on monetary, nomination. And then we look at non-economic loss and damage. These are the things that money cannot quantify, like loss of family members, migration, displacement, drought, desertification. You can't actually quantify this with money. And actors of loss and damage or actors of climate change, we have state actors, government, policymakers, federal and local governments. Non-state actors, we have CSOs, grassroots people, private business sectors, activists, and all. And I would just like to rush to conclusion. So when people work together, they thrive together, but today's institutional structures grounded largely in a culture of competition and antagonism perpetuate power imbalances and entrench inequalities. We've seen situations where people just, like doing things alone. If I'm carrying out a project and I know in this project I'm carrying out, the people that can be able to give me what I want are the people that I'm talking to right now. And probably they are carrying out similar project with me. What I will do at that instance will be to collapse my project, or not just collapsing my project, but merging my project with them to achieve maximum impact. So in other words, what I'm calling for is we all should, collaborate together, work together to make ends meet, because together we can achieve more. So I'll be open for questions and answers and every other thing. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, that was great and awesome. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Samuel. And
yes,
we really, really appreciate your effort and time to bring this to us this evening. All right, so I posted in the chat room the other time that if you have your questions, you can begin to drop them, or if you would like to be verbal about them as well, this is time for you to do that. So does anybody have any question? Does anybody have any question? Please, if you have any question, you can please raise up your hand, or you go ahead and ask. Just unmute and ask your question. Okay.
Someone so my question, you mentioned, Mr. Samuel, you mentioned at some point in your presentation that so many communities in Nigeria are not well prepared to handle the effects of climate change. So my question is what do you think are the ways we can make the government and also the citizens more involved, or begin to take a look at making adequate preparations to handle the eventual effects of climate change? Although I've had some people say that we shouldn't just prepare to handle the negative effects that come. We should start thinking in the direction of preventing the effects from coming in the first place. But then how do we begin to encourage such thinking in our policies as a government and also as a people? How do we increase the interest of we Nigerians as a whole in making preparations when it comes to climate change and its effects?
Okay, so thank you so much for that question. And what I would say is that it starts with advocacy, talking to people about it. And then the reason why I said Nigeria is not prepared is because we are not investing in climate change. We are not, like, we have zero investment or zero priority given to that area. And apart from advocacy, people need to start educating people about climate change. Now, educating people about climate change is not enough, but using local languages to transmit this information will go a long way than just using this English, which a lot of people can find very, very interesting, but difficult to understand. So it goes a long way. And then beyond that, you look at advancing this advocacy. When you're looking at advancing it, you talk about the social media optimization or using digital media to canvas for climate change action or climate action, as the case may be. So, and also calling for policies to be, initiated that gives adequate adaptation, that gives good perspective or good roadmap for the establishment of an adequate adaptation plan. Already, Nigeria has a Climate Change Act, and I work with GLOBE, that is Global Legislators for a Balanced Environment. We work directly with the members of parliament, that is House of Assembly in Abuja, and we provide them with policy recommendations and educate them and train them on how to pass bills for climate change. And then part of what we've been able to do is to bring in the Climate Change Act, which was signed by the President of Nigeria on the 17th of November 2021, known as the Climate Change Act. You can also check your Google to find out more. And this act gives room for the establishment of these things I've mentioned, and even went further to talk about establishing climate education in schools. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, we can hear you now.
I think I logged out. I don't know what happened.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry about that.
So beyond that, so for you right now as a youth, as a social impactor or a social innovator, what I would say is that start with awareness, create the awareness that this problem exists, and look at nature-based solutions. What are the nature-based solutions? Education. Apart from education, tree planting, sustainable environmental practices, proper waste disposal, stop bush burning, stop open what do they call it, defecation, stop there's a lot of things, stop regular travels. And if you want to travel, if you want to drive often, limit how often you drive your car, because the amount of carbon you use to drive your car, you can save that and use the public transport. It reduces your carbon footprint. And if you also want to push further, you talk to people about, their energy. If they are using this normal bulb, you advise them to switch to energy bulb that conserves more energy and also reduces emission. You look at proper water consumption and usage. When you want to go further again, you talk to people as well about the knowledge of climate change, the A to Z of climate change, what they should know in their local languages. And you engage your community as well by doing sensitization, awareness campaign. You come out one morning, you say, okay, let's go on eco walk. You walk them around, you admire nature. These are the things that you can easily bring to people for them to be able to appreciate that nature is beautiful and they would like to conserve it. And you can also go on social media, engage in a social media campaign. Probably every day you can say, okay, I want to engage in a 30-day social media campaign. So every day you make a digital post about climate change and the action that people should take. You can do that for 30 days. That is social media digital campaign for climate action. And apart from that, you can also engage with your members of parliament, with your local authority, try to see how you can support them by recommending some programs for them to run, or even running that program, but partnering with them to make sure they are also involved in that program. You can also talk to your community leaders. So these are steps you can take, but I'll have to say, charity begins at home. So if you want to start from your immediate community. Don't say, okay, seeing this person have gone across the globe and everything, let me just enter the globe. Let me just go global. You will get lost. So the best thing is start from your immediate. I started from my immediate community. In fact, not just my immediate community. I started from my own household, from my own house, and from there we started expanding to people in my estate, from my estate, people in other communities. From there, we started entering local communities in different states. From there, we started touching states. From states, we started touching countries. From countries, we started touching global leaders. That is how it should be. And when you follow these major tracks, these major steps, you won't be able to lose focus of your major drive and your why for engaging in such an action. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That
Wow.
was very
detailed and impactful. All right. Does anybody have any other question before we allow Mr. Sam to go? Okay. In the absence of any other question, Mr. Sam, I would just like you to let us know if perhaps maybe if one wants to connect with you beyond this platform, maybe to inquire more about issues around climate change. Is there any of your social media handle that you can just drop here so that we can easily contact you?
Okay, I'm more active on LinkedIn and Twitter. So my Twitter handle is Samuel C. Okorie. That's my Twitter handle. And my LinkedIn is Samuel Chijoke Okorie. Chijoke Chijioke. So let me see if I can share any of those handles here.
All right, please, we will appreciate if you can drop it in the chat box.
Okay, I think you can easily go on the Twitter to check, but let me just drop the LinkedIn. So if you see me on Facebook, please don't shout me up because I may not respond.
We are together.
It's just
all right.
So, I share content there, but I don't use it for. I just post like general content. So thank you so much.
All right. So
and also you can reach me on my mail. So let me drop my mail. This is my official mail. Yeah.
So please, we can connect with Mr. Sam on LinkedIn. And if you have further questions, please do reach out to him via his email.
Sorry, this mail is not correct. So then.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam. We really appreciate your efforts, and thank you so much for obliging our invite. I'd like you to know that beyond the number of participants that we had in this meeting is actually going beyond here. We stream live on, I think, Twitter, if I am right, Ms. Esther. We're also streaming on Twitter. So other members of this cohort will still get to watch this session later. So I believe beyond the level of impact that you have made today, much more person will still be impacted by the time they get to watch this webinar. So please expect us to get back to you, maybe through your LinkedIn or via Twitter or your email. So even people that are not on this call might also reach out to you. So on behalf of our organizers from the Sustainable Development Solution Network, and on behalf of every member of the Abia SDG Advocacy group, we really want to thank you and appreciate you for your efforts to have talked to us in this call, and we pray that you succeed in everything that you lay your hands upon. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Steven, and hope to see you again. Thanks for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. Have a great evening, sir.
You too.
Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. So hi, everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for making it tonight. And we'll meet again tomorrow by 6 p.m. as we shed more light on the, I think, Go 5 now. Is it Go 5 or Go 3? Talking about good health and well-being. So we're having another keynote speaker coming around tomorrow to handle that. So please, I just would like to encourage us to share the gospel of this webinar to as many persons as possible. We hope to have an improved attendance by tomorrow. So does anybody have anything to say before we call it a wrap tonight? Mr. Philemon, you are muted.
Okay, no, I was actually unmuted before. Yeah, I think virtually you said everything, and we have the take home for today. Looking forward to tomorrow's section. Yeah, to consolidate on this actual mission. I really want to express profound gratitude to the leadership of this cohort, heavily led by the leadership of Exeter, supported by DME. You guys have really been top-notch in the top year, driving this mission, making it a possibility. I really appreciate, and I can only say thank you and God bless you, and to other members of this group. It's a pleasure. I just know that someday we get to meet, someday we'll get to know ourselves
sure.
even better. Yeah. And then, yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Mr. Annie, your mic is unmuted as well.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to say something. This almost the same thing that Philemon said. So I just wanted to appreciate you and the leader. You know, you guys are doing great stuff, and it's really encouraging. You know, like today's session was really impactful and eye-opening. So I really, I'm so grateful and I'm so happy about that. So just thumbs up to everyone. I'm happy to be on the group. I'm excited about everything that is happening. It's more like the long journey is, you know, is wrapping up, and it's
Exactly.
yeah. So we are in the already, and like
The pressure is subsiding.
yeah, the pressure is subsiding, and I'm so happy about that. So we thank God for everything. Thank you very much,
All right.
Stephen.
You're welcome.
Sorry. Yeah,
So,
just to ask,
no. Okay.
how is the school project going on with us?
I do not think anybody from the state has actually carried out their OAS. Personally, for me, I have not been able to agree with the leadership of the school about a particular date that I would be coming around. So hopefully this coming week, I should be able to get that done. But it's looking like, okay, maybe the school would actually give us the permission to go ahead. So that's for me.
Okay, then for me, I was supposed to do last week, but I had so much on my table, so it's definitely this week. Actually, the school I applied, they allowed me or they gave me the permission, so I'll go this week and just do it. Amen.
Yeah, but I want to ask, is there something we're supposed to submit as an evidence for the school project? As in, is there something we're supposed to submit?
Yes.
Yes, you have to submit.
The letter, I think the letter.
Is it?
It means evidence of implementation of execution, right?
Yeah, evidence that that one executed the school project. Like, yeah.
There's a link to submit your reports. That will show you in the webinar group. I think I'll share that again. Then you also have to include pictures, like at the school. There's a link to submit an official report for that.
Okay. Okay. There's a link to submit the official reports for that. Okay.
I want to even ask, are we to do a video or just pictures?
You can also do.
You can.
In fact, me, I'm planning to do or just a short video.
A short video, right? Okay.
Yeah, pictures are
Okay. I think
for
that's
students.
Like, is it also possible for one to do it like do the give lectures online, probably if one is not present on site? Is it possible?
You mean you want to do a virtual?
Yeah, do
OAS?
a virtual sensitization, probably.
That's to substitute for the physical one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Will you be speaking to students?
Yeah. The audience will be the students, actually, if possible. Yeah.
So how do you go about?
Okay, I'll ask.
Please help me. Is that how will is that how we?
How would you go about the technical aspect, like from the school end?
Yeah, it's to organize
The
it
setting of
somehow,
the Zoom.
if it's possible.
I'll ask. Time is really fast spent. Thank you so much, Mr. Thank you so much. You did well today. It's nice hearing all our voices.
Okay, thank you very much, Esther. Please, maybe you could just drop the link you talked about, and then I hope to get response from the inquiry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Let's have a
good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right. So please let's not forget to report in good time tomorrow.
Okay,
Bye.
6 p.m., right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.